It's been said that this plane is defective, that it can't be landed without stalling, and that I'm a Motion RC shill for calling it a great jet. Hey there, I'm John, your local Motion RC shill. This is Two Shillers RC, and this is me shilling a plane that I don't make any money on. I'm one of the few influencers that participates on RC groups, so sometimes I get into spirited discussions with people. And when this jet came out, I had posted my experiences with it, my recommended upgrades and adjustments, and what I thought of it using our objective review system. Now, over time, the discussion thread in the F-14 took a disappointing turn for the worst as people started blaming the jet for being irredeemably flawed, because they were having issues landing it. Now, I got into it with some people, including one fellow who insists that my viewpoints on this jet can't be trusted because Motion sent me exactly one jet, the Zeus. Now look, I'm part of this community, for better or worse. I'm not here to hawk products at you. I fly for the love of flying, and my wife and I work overtime together to make this channel a reality so that we can help you know more about how airplanes fly, what to expect when you're buying one, and whether a plane is right for you. Because not every airplane-shaped piece of foam is going to be easy to fly. And that's something I'm going to help you out with today. I disagree completely that this jet is flawed. What I think is the issue is that people's approach to it is flawed. The scale difference between the 80 and the 64 is throwing people off. You see a smaller airplane and you think it must be easier to fly, but that's not true at all. Bigger flies better, which is why more people can successfully fly the twin 80 F-14. It doesn't stall as easily, it bites into the air more confidently, and it more easily recovers from stalls for the average pilot. Scaling down an airplane doesn't scale the air molecules with it, so the smaller something gets while maintaining a similar wing load, the harder it's going to stall and the more difficult it's going to be to take off, fly, and land. Each class of airplane has a different approach to landing. Floaty bush planes like a timber can be plopped onto the ground in a 3-point landing.
Oh, hi.
Moderately loaded jets like the FMS Avanti can be landed with zero power. Highly loaded jets like the F5 and F14 require throttle on approach. Yes, John Calland, we know that you can land your 80mm F14 power off. Not everyone is that skilled. The proper way to land an F14, as in the way you're going to reliably set the jet down with no damage, is to land it with throttle on the backside of the power curve. Now, what does that mean? Let's take a look at it while I perform touch and go practice. The stick camera here isn't perfect, but it's gonna get the job done for today. I perform all of my approaches in military overhead pattern. To do this, drop the gear, pull the nose into the turn with rudder, add elevator to accelerate the turn. Line up with the runway, drop flaps, keep the nose pointed down. Stay powered off until you begin to level out. Throttle will control your rate of descent. Lower throttle means a faster descent. Once you get lower to the ground, keep throttle fed in until you're close to landing. Right before landing, chop the throttle, flare the jet, then go around again. The more you repeat this, the better you get at it. Did you ever play Top Gun on the NES back in the 80s and struggle like crazy with landings? You're not alone. A lot of people had issues with that, and a lot of people have issues landing this jet too. The reason why you use power on the backside of the curve is to avoid landing short, like this. But you have to use the right throttle power, otherwise you'll overshoot the runway. The key is to find the right glide slope with the right throttle setting, and a lot of that comes from touch and go practice, constantly. Once your landings start looking like this from the side, you've got it down. Let's run through this again so that I can break it down and explain thoroughly. Step 1. Approach. Begin to plan out your landing. Step 2. Line up with the runway. Bank the jet in with aileron, rudder, and elevator. Use aileron to roll, use rudder and elevator to coordinate the turn until you're lined up. Correct any deviation with aileron input. Step 3. Power down, stay lined up, push the nose down to trade altitude for airspeed. Just like going downhill in a car, going down with a plane creates airspeed in exchange for losing altitude. Step 4. As you approach the runway, level out, feed in power to fly down to the ground. Step 5. Once you're in ground effect, chop power, use minute elevator input to keep the jet flying level, then gently pull the stick to flare onto the main wheels. These steps aren't going to be easy for first-time pilots, but they're repeatable and they're possible. And if I can do this, you can do it too. It's not a defective jet, it's aerodynamics at work. Now, there are some things that you can do to mitigate the nasty stall that the F-14 has. You can take a belt sander to the wing and tear it up to hell and back to try to reshape the airfoil at the wingtip, then repaint it and all the other crazy crap you gotta do. You can also reflex the ailerons upward. I'm a big fan of that because that's how I used to land the E-flite Viper 90. You can add vortex generators to the leading edges of the wings too. That will help with delayed flow separation. Or, hear me out here, you can just use some power on the approach and don't land like a meteor unless you want to reenact my childhood playing Top Gun. What sounds easier to you? Taking the time to learn how to fly this jet will open up the ability to fly anything else. You'll have the skill to fly, adapt, and overcome, and I think that's something worth celebrating. So, go buy yourself another heavily loaded jet, but maybe consider sharing your model aviation budget with your significant other, so you don't have to be one of those guys hiding your new airplane from your wife. One thing I forgot to mention is that the F-14's wing sweep function converts the jet into a delta wing. What does that mean, you ask? Aside from turning into a death Dorito on command, a delta can abuse angle of attack, it's more resistant to stalling, and it can land nose high with a powered approach. I'm sorry to do this to you because it's truly a horrible day to have eyes, but it is possible, and if you're having issues landing with the wings extended, try landing with power with the wings swept. It won't stall, it just looks hilarious. Oh, and you can take off with the wings swept too. Don't heap praise on me. Landing and taking off with the wings swept is actually a cheat code to flying this plane without crashing it. Even better, you can sweep the wings before doing a high G maneuver and it won't enter into an accelerated stall. Try the same moves with the wings extended and it'll stall every single time. You can abuse this by making tight turns as you sweep the wings, giving you stall resistance in that maverick style that comes from flying something as badass as the F-14. Also, astute observers might notice that I've been landing with full span flaps this entire time, just like the full-scale F-14. Landing with flaps in general reduces the wing's critical angle of attack, the angle at which it stalls no matter what speed it's going. Landing with full span flaps reduces critical alpha even more, giving you even less of a range of alpha to work with. So if this jet truly was flawed, there'd be no way that I'd be able to land it at all with the increased difficulty of full span flaps. QED. Now, if you want your jet to fly like mine, I would highly recommend bypassing the stock gyro and run all of your flight surfaces direct to the receiver. This is all covered in the setup guide that I posted originally. I'm a stern believer in gyros, but I don't like gyros that require a laptop or a Bluetooth app on your phone. I'd rather do it from my transmitter. And with the advent of AS3X Plus making forward programming even more tunable to your own preferences, it's really hard to argue with it. Now, I'm such a motion shill that I completely disagree that the stock Freewing gyro is worth keeping. Gosh, can I shill any harder for motion? The jets that they sell are top-notch, but you're almost never going to hear me be satisfied with the stock experience on their models. They can and they should be improved. Take the stock jet as a baseline and use my settings. I don't know everything, but I'd like to think that I know enough to make this jet fly pretty damned well. So now that we've established that the jet isn't defective, or at least it flies really well on the setup that I recommend, what else can the Tomcat do? Well, it's actually one of the more capable Freewing jets. It's one of the few that they sell which will actually perform Cobra maneuvers, Cobra spins, whatever the hell this is, flat spins, high alpha passes, etc., etc. It's a 2-in-1 jet. You get the scale appearance of a Tomcat with the wings extended, but the stability and angle of attack abuse potential from sweeping the wings. There were a plethora of reasons why the Tomcat had wing sweep in full scale. At this scale, none of it matters. Anytime you sweep the wings on a jet in model aviation, you get a death Dorito, and all of the alpha abuse goodness that comes with it. Even the B-1 from X-Fly behaves like this because it's a function of turning the wings into a triangle instead of leaving them straight. Now, don't let me set your expectations too high. The Tomcat is not a beginner's jet. It's arguably not even an intermediate jet. When you're talking about something that costs $500, you're well out of beginner territory. It's a highly wing-loaded swept-wing fighter that requires careful piloting skills to avoid crashing, but it's also hella fun once you figure out how aggressive you can be while you're maneuvering it. If you buy this jet because of this video, take it up, fly it, and get a feel for it before trying to reenact the stunts that you're seeing me perform. There's an innate level of understanding how each jet flies that doesn't come through on YouTube. To fly like you're seeing me fly here, you gotta have a good understanding of the jet, and with that comes practice and patience. I don't just huck my planes around on the first flight. It takes several flights before I'm really comfortable with them and then start performing these maneuvers. To sum up this entire video, the F-14 is incredibly capable, but it's also not forgiving when you try landing it in a way it was not designed to be landed. Many other aircraft will drop a wing when they get slow. Only this jet gets called defective because of it. That's both unfair and it's misinformed. The Viper 90 from E-flite drops a wing every single time if you get too slow on approach while trying to hold the nose up. That's a consequence of the wing design and the wing load, and not flying it correctly. It's not a problem with the plane. Don't be that guy who blames the plane for your own piloting mistakes. You will never grow as a pilot if your first reaction to a crash is to blame the design of the aircraft you're flying. Also, I wanted to follow up to a comment that I had hid from the channel previously. It's one of the most unhinged comments I've seen so far, and I've seen a lot of them. Saying that I owe the model aviation community an apology for saying the F-14-64 is a good jet. That'll be the day. I'm not apologizing for speaking what I feel to be the truth. It's a great jet, especially if you put in the work to make it fly really well. And if you like what you've seen so far, you can pick it up from the non-affiliate link in the description below, because I don't get paid for recommending this jet. I just love how it flies, and I think you will too. And if you want your jet to fly like mine, watch the setup guide portion of the original review video and use an AR-10360T receiver to bypass the stock gyro system and run all the control surfaces direct to the receiver. Use the aileron tail type initially to program the gyro, then set it up for a dual elevator tail type so that you can have roll and pitch corrections on both stabilators. The AS3X Plus guide linked in the description too will also explain how to do this, and if you're confused, just hop on Discord and we'll walk you through the process. Now, for those of you who want to know what the gains are, I used 1x master gain, 40 roll, 75 pitch, 45 yaw, with 100 priority on all axes, 60 lock rate on roll with a default release rate. For the pitch gains to be as effective as you're seeing here, you should be using the same servos that I'm flying, which are Hi-Tech HS85 MGs. Those are linked below. I don't normally follow up on planes before a year is up, but I think this one has been begging to be reshot because it's getting a bad reputation from people who aren't willing to try landing it the way that it's meant to be landed. And I think you can see that the F-14 is clearly the opposite of what some people are claiming it is. Sure, it's got some quirks, but what airplane doesn't? And really, what challenge would there be to model aviation if a new plane didn't come along that made you rethink how to approach landings and takeoffs? I don't know about you, but I love the experience of flying no matter how difficult it might be sometimes. So hop on Discord with us and chat about this video, or just come say hi to our awesome and friendly community. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys again next week.